ready. School is just around the corner. New supplies, new adventures await. It's time to reconnect with friends. Boost your confidence with fresh outfits. Prepare for an amazing school year. Get your schedules and gear in place. Let's make this school year unforgettable.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Education Platform. Now, before we begin with the lessons I have for you today, I would just like to say and wish you a happy Labor Day. Now, I'm going to be reading to you two verses. The first one is taken from Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. And it states that, "Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves. You may also be tempted." The word of the Lord. Our second verse, which is taken from Luke chapter 8, verse 43 to 48, and it states that, "And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. Though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, 'Who was it that touched me?' When all denied it, Peter said, 'Master, the crowd surround you, and pressing in on you.' But Jesus said, 'Someone touched me, for I perceive that the power has gone out from me.' And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace.'" The word of the Lord. Now, our first lesson is about the climate change in Florida. As it starts, understanding its threats and responses. Introduction. The climate change poses a significant threat, especially to vulnerable areas like Florida. This presentation explores its defined impacts, particularly in the connection of rising sea levels, extreme weather events that are happening, and much more. Climate change overview. Climate change refers to a significant alterations in global temperatures around the world and weather patterns over time. This can lead and contribute to human activities, especially because of fossil fuel combustion, accelerating these charges, leading to global warming and unpredictable climates. The global impacts. There are consequences of climate change worldwide. They are impacting many of the ecosystems in the world, many of the economies and social structures, and much more. And also, of rising temperatures can also increase the frequency of natural disasters, and also a loss of biodiversity. Also, the definition of biodiversity is the study that is based on life. And threats to food security, such as not being able to have the amount of food in order to survive. These global shifts necessitate urgent action. The special effects on Florida, also known as due to its geography, rising sea levels threaten coastal communities, while intensified storm levels and heat waves disrupt both natural habitats and human activities. Also, for rising sea levels, it can also cause coastal erosion. Rising sea levels. Rising sea levels primarily result from thermal expansion of seawater and melting glaciers. As the planet warms up, the volume of seawater increases, leading to high coastal waters that inundate low-lying areas. This phenomenon can accelerate to a human-induced climate change. Areas that are a risk to Florida. There are many Florida coastal cities such as Miami and Tampa face significant risks from rising sea levels, such as flooding, erosion, and saltwater intrusion, which can damage the infrastructure and displace communities. These economic ramifications of the rising sea levels can cause a profound infrastructure damage and also increase insurance costs, such as declining property values could challenge the state's economy. Vital industries like tourism and agriculture may suffer, leading to a significant job losses and reduced state revenues. Extreme weather events. The extreme weather events that can happen can also increase the frequency and intensity of many of the weather that is happening, such as hurricanes and severe storms. The case studies in Florida stated that in 2017, Hurricane Irma revealed the vulnerabilities of urban areas to flooding and wind damage. Analyzing these events aid in understanding climate-related risks, informing future preparedness and infrastructure improvements. Preparedness and response strategies. They're also essential for mitigating the impacts of extreme weather events. Mitigation and adaptation strategies. Florida has launched various state policies and initiatives aimed at addressing climate change. These include regulations encouraging renewable energy investments and green infrastructure with the community resilience programs. Community involvement is very crucial for building resilience against climate change, such as rebuilding many of the buildings that you see today, or houses. The future outlook. Florida also relies on regarding climate change, relies on continuous adaptation and mitigation efforts. They are very essential, and also the commitments to reducing the greenhouse gas and also to invest clean energy sources. In conclusion, addressing the climate change in Florida is a multi-faced challenge requiring collaboration and strategic planning in order to benefit from it, in order for us to live an eternal life. And that's the end of the lesson I have for you today. Now, our next lesson is about the history of Alabama. The History of Alabama, a comprehensive overview of Alabama's rich historical narrative by Education Platform. This presentation provides a professional overview of Alabama's history, covering key periods from early settlements through statehood and the Civil War and the Civil Rights Movement. Early settlement. Native American tribes was originally inhabited by several Native American tribes such as the Creek, the Choctaw, and the Cherokee. These tribes had established complex societies with rich cultural traditions, governance, and economies that are centered on agriculture and trade. The very first European explorers arrived during the 16th century, with Spanish explorers Hernando de Soto claiming the parts of the territory. Their expeditions set in motion a series of interactions with both positive and negative native populations. Colonial beings. By the 18th century, the area that would become Alabama was being claimed by various European powers. With the French establishing settlements, the region eventually transitioned to British control following the French and Indian War, leading to significant demographic and political changes. Statehood and Civil War. Admission to the Union. It was admitted into the United States as the 22nd state on December 14, 1819. This milestone marked Alabama's transition into a full-fledged member of the Union, setting the stage for further social and economic development. The role in Civil War. As a Confederate state, its strategic location is very crucial for Confederate operations.
It's also home to various military installations and production facilities that give off vital effort and war effort. The Reconstruction era in Alabama followed the Civil War and aimed to rebuild the South, integrate formerly enslaved people into society. This period faced numerous challenges, including violent opposition from groups such as the Ku Klux Klan. Also, the Ku Klux Klan will be one of our reviews that we're going to be showing to you after this lesson. And they are also ensuring civil rights and political participation for African Americans. Civil rights movement. One of the key figures, such as Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and John Lewis, they emerged from Alabama during the civil rights movement. Their leadership and advocacy were crucial in mobilizing public opinion and demanding the equal rights, becoming icons of the struggle for racial equality. The events that happened during the civil rights movement include the Montgomery bus boycott, in which Rosa Parks was involved because she couldn't give up her seat. The Birmingham campaign, the Selma to Montgomery marches. These moments highlighted the systemic racism in the South and galvanized national attention and support for civil rights legislation. For some of these events, they include segregation and also being judged based on the color of their skin. The lasting impact, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These laws transformed American society by prohibiting discrimination, of safeguard voting rights, and enduring legacy on civil liberties and social justice. Modern Alabama. The economic development in Alabama was moving from an economy primarily based on agriculture to one that includes manufacturing, aerospace, and technology. It also led to these sectors that has been bolstered by investment, infrastructure, and workforce development. Alabama has a rich cultural heritage, contributing significantly to music, literature, and cuisine. It also has an influential role in the development of the blues, jazz, and country music, which is some of the music that most people would know about. It's also very famous, has very famous writers, and celebrates culinary traditions. The political landscape of modern Alabama reflects a blend of tradition and progressivism, also known as progress, with ongoing debates over social issues, education, and healthcare. And also, the state's political dynamics are shaped by its history and the diverse perspectives of its population in the country, or in state. In conclusion, from early settlements through significant civil rights advancements to its present date, socio-economic dynamics, understanding this history is essential for guiding future progress and fostering unity within the state. And that's the end of our second lesson that we have for you today.
All right, we'll be right back after these messages.
Weather refers to the day-to-day state of the atmosphere in a particular area, including temperature, humidity, precipitation, and wind. Conditions like sunny, rainy, windy, or snowy create the weather we experience daily. Weather can change from hour to hour or day to day, influenced by factors such as geography and season. Understanding weather helps us make daily decisions, from what to wear to planning events. Meteorology is the science that studies the atmosphere and predicts weather patterns.
All right, and now the weather instruments that are used are thermometers, many kinds of satellites, also the barometer, helium, also known as weather balloons, and much more. We'll be right back after these messages.
Let's go.
And we're back. Now, our next lesson I have for you today is an article based on polar ice caps, or rising sea levels.
Global sea ice cover just hit a new record low this February. It's another reminder of how our planet is getting warmer. Scientists are worried because less sea ice can have serious impacts on the entire world. Sea ice is frozen seawater that floats on the ocean surface. It forms in both the Arctic, North Pole, and Antarctic, South Pole regions. It freezes over the winters and shrinks back over the summers, but never completely disappears. However, the poles are getting less icy each year, as the ice melts due to rising global temperatures caused by climate change. Climate is the weather patterns over a long period of time, usually 30 years or more. Climate change is the significant change in the climate of Earth over a long period of time. It can happen naturally, but today, climate change is largely caused by human activities. Tracking temperatures and sea ice. The Copernicus Climate Change Service, C3S, is an agency run by the European Union. It provides monthly updates on global temperatures and sea ice cover. In February 2025, C3S scientists announced that the sea ice around the poles had reached an all-time minimum when compared with previous Februaries. Their records began in 1979. C3S studies billions of measurements. They're taken from satellites in space, ships, aircraft, and weather stations worldwide to create snapshots of the state of the world's climate. In February, C3S scientists announced that January 2025 was the warmest January on record. The March report revealed that February 2025 was the third warmest February on record. It wasn't a record breaker, but it did continue a worrying warming trend. Not all parts of the planet get warmer at the same rate. Last month, severe winter storms blasted the United States with record-breaking cold. C3S revealed that a good chunk of North America was cooler than average for February. However, temperatures were mostly above average around the rest of the world, and temperatures at the North Pole were 36 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than normal on February 2nd, 2025. The Arctic is warming around 4 times faster than the rest of the world, an effect that is linked to the melting sea ice. How ice loss harms the environment. Sea ice helps regulate Earth's climate. The white ice acts like a mirror, reflecting the sun's energy back into space, keeping polar regions cooler. But with warmer temperatures melting sea ice, there are fewer bright icy surfaces to reflect the sunlight and much more open dark water that will soak it in. That makes ocean temperatures rise. More sea ice melts, which reveals more open ocean, and so on. This cycle of warming and melting ends up warming the planet further. The loss of sea ice is also bad news for humans and wildlife living on it. Animals like seals and polar bears in the Arctic and penguins in the Antarctic depend on sea ice for their survival, using it for shelter, breeding, and food. Meanwhile, climate change threatens billions of people worldwide. It is making snowfall, rainfall, and other weather more extreme and unpredictable. People are facing increased rain and floods. They're also facing higher temperatures and droughts. These are extended periods of time in which an area gets less than its normal amount of rain. This is making wildfires more common and making farmlands drier, which is making it harder to produce food. As for the Arctic, some scientists say it could be nearly ice-free in the summer in a few years.
And that's the end of the lesson about polar ice caps or rising sea levels. Now, we'll be right back after these messages. Alright, now our final lesson is about an article based on King Tut's tomb from 100 years ago.
On November 4th, 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter and his team discovered the entrance to a tomb in the Valley of the Kings in Luxor, Egypt. 3 weeks later, on November 26th, Carter smashed a hole into a stone wall in an underground hallway there. As he aimed his flashlight into the darkness, his friend and sponsor, George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, asked if he could see anything. "Yes, wonderful things," he replied, according to the book The Discovery of the Tomb of Tutankhamun, written with Arthur Cruttenden Mace in 1923. As a result of his discovery, gold, jewelry, and other fantastic treasures saw the light of day for the first time in more than 3,000 years. The world became suddenly transfixed by a little-known pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Rumors of an evil curse followed the discovery. Almost as quickly, public attention shifted to wondering whether a curse could be plaguing all those who had entered King Tut's tomb. Sudden deaths, grievous misfortune, and other unlikely events gave rise to speculation. Could an evil spell be at work afflicting any who had dared to enter the pharaoh's final resting place? A media frenzy descended on Luxor after each calamity. Shortly after the first archaeologist died, a few months after the tomb's discovery, newspaper headlines blared the curse of the pharaohs. It reported, famous spiritualist sees occult reason for fatality. Spiritualists believed that the spirits of dead people survived the death of their body and could be communicated with. But was there really a curse? Some studies suggest a more ordinary possible explanation. The culprit could have been mold found on mummies and in the air at burial sites in Egypt. No curse was ever found written in hieroglyphics at the tomb of Tutankhamun, the Egyptian king who died at 18 or 19, around 1323 BC. His father is thought to have been Pharaoh Akhenaten. Carter himself dismissed the idea of a curse as Tommy rot, an old expression for nonsense. The sentiment of the Egyptologist is not one of fear, but of respect and awe, entirely opposed to foolish superstitions, he said, according to H.V.F. Winstone in his book Howard Carter and the Discovery of the Tomb of Tutankhamun. However, Lord Carnarvon's death on April 5, 1923, less than 5 months after the tomb was opened, drove rumors of a wicked spell. Newspaper accounts were filled with the possibility as more archaeologists and explorers fell ill and died. In 1926, the New York Daily News ran an article with the headline, "Vengeance of King Tut is seen as death list mounts." Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of the popular Sherlock Holmes stories, added his own theory. Upon learning of the death of his friend Carnarvon, Doyle, a known spiritualist, told a reporter, "An evil elemental may have caused Lord Carnarvon's fatal illness." In other words, he believed it possible that spirits caused his death. After the Earl died, others followed, including George J. Gould, an American financier who died from pneumonia shortly after visiting the tomb in 1923. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed perished the following year soon after X-raying the mummy in London. James Henry Breasted, an American archaeologist who took part in the 1922 discovery, lived until 1935. He died of an infection following his final trip to Egypt. In addition, the media frenzy fed off a series of unfortunate events that beset a few of the others who had visited the tomb. British archaeologist Hugh Evelyn White, who worked on the dig at Luxor, died in 1924. He reportedly left a note in which he wrote, "I have succumbed to a curse." Carter's personal secretary, Richard Bethel, the first person to enter the tomb behind Carter, was found smothered to death at his London Men's Club in 1929. Carter died in 1939, a full 17 years after the discovery of Hodgkin's disease, a type of cancer. And yet newspapers around the world focused almost exclusively on the curse of the pharaohs when printing his obituary. An obituary contains a brief biography and notification of a person's death. Modern science points to possibility of mold. Today, science has a more logical explanation. Studies have shown that an organic source might have been a contributing factor in at least some of the deaths. Common mold, especially Aspergillus, may have been present on King Tut's mummy. The fungus is known to cause serious infections in people with weakened immune systems. Potentially harmful fungi survive for extreme lengths of time in tombs, wrote English doctors Sherif El-Tawil and Tariq El-Tawil in 2003. In their letter to the British medical journal The Lancet, they claimed that the harmful effects of mold can increase after such a long time lying undisturbed. Lord Carnarvon was sickly most of his life and often had respiratory illnesses. According to his obituary in the New York Times, he died on April 5, 1923, of pneumonia brought on by blood poisoning from a mosquito bite on his cheek.
And that's the end of all the lessons I have for you today. Now, before I go, I just want you guys to know that education is the key to many different things that we have to face in life. And it's also to help us with any challenges that we face. As long as you have God by your side, anything is possible. And now I hope you all have a wonderful day and join us on our next live stream.